There are moments in football when time seems to fold in on itself, when you can almost feel history brushing up against the present. This was one of those nights. Portugal, yes, Portugal, have done it. Again, UEFA Nations League champions for the second time. But more than that, they've finally broken the spell. They've beaten Spain, for the first time since 2010. Think about that. Before TikTok, before Brexit, before Messi left Barcelona, that's how long it's been. 14 years of coming close, of drawing, of chasing shadows. And now, vindication. A trophy held up high, a penalty shootout survived, and Spain left wondering, again, what went wrong when it all felt so right? Let's get this out of the way. This was not one of those sterile, play-the-percentages finals. This wasn't a nap of a 0-0 that gets decided by the lottery of penalties. This game was loud. It had volume. 2 goals apiece, bodies flying, tempers boiling, momentum swinging like a metronome on speed. It was a match that breathed, sometimes raggedly, sometimes rhythmically, but never stopped. And at the center of it all was that ever-familiar name, Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, he's still doing it. You can retire your memes and your think pieces. He's still here, still scoring, still dragging Portugal by the scruff of the neck and whispering, "Not yet." That volley to equalize in the second half wasn't just a goal. It was a moment. A moment that shifted the air in the stadium. The kind of moment that makes you forget he's 39, or that this might have been his last dance. If it was, he made it count. But it wasn't just Ronaldo. That's the thing. Portugal didn't win this because of one man. They won it because Mendes ran like a man possessed, because Fernandes bossed the midfield with a glint in his eye and a smirk that said, "Go on then, chase me." Because Costa stared down Morata like he was reading his search history and guessed exactly where that penalty was going. Let's talk about that shootout, shall we? Penalty shootouts have a strange psychological texture. They're not about skill, not really. Everyone can score from the spot. It's about who can carry the weight of history, of failure, of the guy standing in goal looking like he knows something you don't. Portugal didn't just survive it, they dominated it. Every single taker looked like they were made of granite. Morata? Well, he blinked. And in that blink, Portugal didn't just score a penalty. They won a war. The weird thing is, Spain will feel like they should have won this. The expected goals told that story. The possession stats hummed it like a lullaby. They had the ball, they had the shots, they had the script. But Portugal, they rewrote it. They took the part where Spain builds and eventually breaks through, and they crossed it out. They played the role of the underdog with teeth, snarling, biting, and ultimately celebrating. This was a final soaked in tension, splattered with moments of madness and clarity. It had the old guard and the new wave, the head and the heart, the sweat and the swagger. It was about redemption and reckoning. It was about Portugal saying, "We're not just the team that won it once when nobody was paying attention." It was about saying, "We can do it again. And we can do it against you." And Spain? Oh, Spain. Another final. Another heartbreak. Another set of heads tilted skyward, wondering what the footballing gods require this time. Let's rewind it. All of it. Let's get into the details. The first half hit like a freight train disguised as a football match. From the first minute, there was this frantic energy, like someone had shaken a soda can and popped the tab. Spain came out doing what they do best, moving the ball around like it owed them rent, cutting lanes, spreading width, playing with that soft arrogance they always seem to carry. And for 21 minutes, Portugal chased shadows. Zubimendi, who looks more accountant than assassin, suddenly turned up in the penalty box like he was born to haunt defenders. 1-2, pass, switch, boom, it's in. 1-0 to Spain. You could almost hear the collective sigh of every Portuguese fan in the world. Not again. But that's the thing with this Portugal side. They don't play for your narrative. They play like a team that has seen every headline and chosen to scribble over it with crayon. Because 5 minutes later, up comes Nuno Mendes. You know, the fullback who apparently skipped the chapter in the playbook where defenders aren't supposed to score. Takes a pass, explodes into the box like he's on rocket skates, and whips a low finish past Simon like it's just another Tuesday. 1-1. All square. And now we've got a game. For a while, It looked like the match might just tip into that lull, that gentle twilight that sometimes settles over finals after a flurry of early chaos. But then Portugal did a very Portuguese thing. They overplayed. Bernardo Silva loses the ball in the wrong postcode, Pedri picks his pocket like he's late for the bus, and suddenly Oyarzabal is rolling it under Costa and pointing to the heavens like he meant it all along. 2-1 Spain, right before halftime. Classic gut punch. Into the second half, and for the first 10 minutes, Portugal looked like they'd forgotten where they were. Spain, being Spain, kept the ball and asked politely if they could just wrap this up without any drama. But you can't tell this Portugal side no. You can't give them space and time and assume they'll be grateful losers. And then came Cristiano. Not drifting. Not lurking. No, this time he attacked the space like it owed him money. Mendes again, of course. He was everywhere, burning down the left like the laws of physics don't apply to him. Ball whipped across, deflection, and there's Ronaldo, the ghost at the back post, popping up like a horror movie villain to smash it home. 2-2. The entire stadium stopped breathing for about 4 seconds. You could feel the momentum swing like a wrecking ball. But Spain didn't collapse. That's the thing. They held. They built again. But they couldn't finish. Couldn't find that one opening. Portugal defended like their lives depended on it, throwing bodies at crosses, tracking every run, suffocating every clever pass. Extra time was a mess in the best way. Exhaustion started to leak through the cracks. Legs got heavier, passes got looser. Semedo had a golden chance and buried it somewhere near the clouds. Porro tried to lob Costa from a different time zone and almost succeeded. Mendes thought he won a penalty after being body-checked into the abyss by Baena, but the referee, in his infinite wisdom, saw nothing. Tempers flared, cards were waved. Substitutes piled in like extras in a medieval siege. It was chaos, and yet, no goals. Just that slow realization that neither side had the legs, or maybe the nerve to end it the hard way. So penalties. And the air turned to stone. Penalties. That beautiful, stupid, cruel little invention. It's like solving a chess match with a coin toss, except the coin is on fire and your entire nation is watching. You know the drill. 12 yards. One ball. A goalkeeper trying to become immortal and a taker trying not to become a meme. Portugal stepped up first. Ramos, calm, cool, possibly bored, smacks it down the middle like he's ordering coffee. 1-0. Marino answers, same vibe, different shirt. 1-1. Then Vitinha, just 8 days removed from lifting the Champions League trophy, struts up like he's casually collecting more silverware. 2-1 Portugal. Baena equalizes. 2-2. It's a rhythm, a dance, a nightmare in slow motion. And then comes Bruno Fernandes, the new captain. The man with the technique of a ballerina and the ego of a Bond villain. He hop-skip-jumps his way into Simon's brain and sends him flying the wrong way. 3-2. Isco follows. Costa gets a touch, just a taste. But the ball rolls in. 3-3. And now, Mendes. Of course. Of course it's Mendes. He had already run a marathon, filed his taxes, and scored in regulation time. Now he hammers his penalty into the top corner like he's angry at the net itself. 4-3 Portugal. Then the moment. Morata. You knew it would be him. Every tournament has one. The nearly man. The guy who scores when it doesn't matter and misses when it really, really does. His run-up felt too thoughtful, like a man reading the instructions on a microwave dinner. Costa's read it too. His movement, his eyes, maybe even his soul. He saves. Not a fingertip. A full-blooded, sprawling, destiny-altering save. And that's when it stopped being a shootout and started being a coronation. Neves walks up like it's a formality, and buries it like he's been waiting his whole life for this sentence. Portugal are UEFA Nations League champions. Again. 5-3 on penalties. Game over. Trophy lifted. Curse broken. History rewritten. Now let's sit with that for a second. Portugal have now won this tournament twice. The only team to do so. Spain, 3 finals, 3 disappointments. Their beautiful football always seems to bring them to the brink, and then abandon them. Like the GPS of destiny reroutes them at the last second. And it's not like Spain played badly, far from it. They looked like the better side for stretches. More shots, more control, more everything. But football isn't a spreadsheet, it's a feeling, it's timing, it's moments. And Portugal had those moments. Mendes was a blur, Fernandes was everywhere, Costa was a wall disguised as a man, and Ronaldo, because of course, still had one more script to burn. Spain will go back and study the footage. They'll look at the expected goals, the pass maps, the heat zones, but they won't find what they're looking for. Because what beat them wasn't tactics, it was belief, grit. That uncomfortable, irrational thing that lives in the guts of champions. Portugal had it, and now they've got the trophy to prove it. Again. Let's talk about these teams. Not just how they played, but who they were, out there under the lights, caught in the blur of 90 minutes plus 30 plus 5 spot kicks. Let's start with Spain, because Spain did so much right. For stretches of this final, they looked like the side that had already written the ending. They moved with intent. Their midfield passed like it was a language only they understood. And their goals? Oh, they weren't flukes. Zubimendi's opener was poetry in motion, a counterattack so clean it could have been carved from marble. And Oyarzabal's finish? It had that cool finality that says, we're in control now. Except, as we learned, they weren't. Spain's entire approach was a game of chess. Elegant, calculated, sometimes overthought. They pressed high, kept shape, used the full width of the pitch like it was private property. But when it mattered, when it truly existentially mattered, they lacked the incision. They were the sculptor chiseling forever, but never finishing the statue. It's the same Spain problem we've seen before. Possession becomes a cage, control becomes hesitation. And in finals, hesitation is fatal. But that midfield, Pedri, Zubimendi, Ruiz, they owned long spells of this game. They dictated tempo like they were conducting an orchestra no one else could hear. And yet, the scoreboard didn't care. This game isn't about who speaks the most fluently. It's about who screams loudest at the right time. And that wasn't Spain. They'll be haunted by this. Again. Another final, another near miss, another pile of stat sheets that say you should have won. And maybe they should have. But they didn't. Because Portugal had something Spain didn't. Chaos, tenacity, and one glittering golden vein of grit running right down the spine of the team. Let's get into Portugal. Roberto Martinez. The man who was doubted before he unpacked his suitcase now has 2 trophies in the cabinet. His team is less of a system and more of a resistance movement. They don't dominate, they outlast. They don't orchestrate, they pounce. And they do it with a spine forged in steel and stardust. It starts at the back. Costa is no longer a question mark. He's the answer. Period. Dias? He played like he'd swallowed a traffic cone, immovable, shouting, never not involved. And Mendes? We need a whole separate podcast for him. He wasn't just the best fullback on the pitch. He was the best player. He bent the left wing to his will, attacked like a winger, defended like a tank, and still had the lungs to slot home his penalty like it was the first minute of a preseason friendly. And then there's the midfield. Fernandes, Vitinha, and eventually Neves. Not so much a trio as a rolling tide. They didn't always have the ball, but they made sure Spain never got comfortable. And when they did get possession, they used it like a weapon, not a comfort blanket. This Portugal team didn't just win a final. They announced themselves as a complete team, not Ronaldo and 10 hopefuls, not veterans clinging to glory. A full team, a proper machine, a champion, twice now. Mendes. Let's start there, because frankly, where else would we? I wanted this matchup. I needed it. Nuno Mendes versus Lamine Yamal, the winger of tomorrow against the fullback who looks like he was built in a football lab. We were denied it in the Champions League by Inter Milan and their no fun allowed defensive setup, but finally, here they were. Same side of the pitch, same postcode, and, well, it was a murder scene. Yamal, did he do anything? No. Nothing. Not a single moment where he got the better of Mendes. The kid's 17 and brilliant, sure, but Mendes made him look like he'd wandered into the wrong stadium. Mendes didn't just win his matchup, he ate it alive. On both ends, he was a one-man tide coming in and pulling Yamal out to sea. That first equalizer? Mendes carving through space like a jet ski through fog, dragging the game with him. Then there's the penalty, 4th in the order, high pressure, higher stakes, and he absolutely lashes it into the roof. No nerves, no drama. Just vibes and violence. He didn't just play the match, he shifted the gravity of it. And while we're naming names, let's give Diogo Costa his flowers. Because there's pressure, and then there's penalty shootout against Spain with a trophy on the line pressure. And Costa made it look like a Tuesday morning. That save against Morata, oh man, you could see it before it happened. Costa read the entire moment like a paperback. He was practically leaning into the shot before Morata even planted his foot. That wasn't luck. That was homework. That was pure clairvoyance in gloves. Fernandes, too. He played with the maturity of a man who now wears the armband. That penalty was art. The little skip, the delay, the pure disdain for Simon's guessing game. He turned a football into a punchline and Simon into the joke. And all game long, he was doing the dirty work. Covering ground, linking play, annoying the life out of Spain's midfielders like a mosquito in a locked car. Every time Spain tried to settle, there was Bruno, poking, prodding, pressing, whispering, boo. Ronaldo? Look, he's not the man he once was. He's the man still doing it. And that volley? He didn't need 90 touches. He needed positioning, instinct, and the ability to pull the trigger when the moment begged for it. He's not dragging Portugal anymore, but when they need a moment, when they need the goal to matter, he still shows up like clockwork. And Mendes aside, the unsung hero was probably Ruben Dias. Nothing flashy, no viral clips, just pure, calculated defensive dominance. He put out fires before they had a chance to spark. Spain kept floating crosses into the box like invitations to chaos, and Dias RSVP'd with his forehead every single time. It wasn't just that Portugal had better individuals. It was that their best players were best when it mattered most. You couldn't say that about Spain. Yamal vanished, Pedri flickered, Morata combusted. Meanwhile, Mendes and Costa slammed the door shut, and Fernandes threw the keys into the sea. This wasn't just a final. This was a statement. Portugal don't need to prove they're talented. We've known that. What they proved tonight is that they've got winners. Hungry, feral, unbothered winners. This has been Across the Pitch, over and out.